Great. Well, thank you, everyone, for attending this panel. Very excited to be able to moderate this for you and have incredible friends and guests on stage, some of the luminaries of the digital art world and the NFT world, both here in Hong Kong and abroad. Once again, my name is Jehan Chu. I'm the founder of Kenetic. I'm also a board member of the Digital Art Fair. And I've been a collector since 2006 in both traditional art as well as NFT art. And I'm the fortunate and privileged owner of everything from one of the 5 Andy Warhol NFTs that were issued by Christie's and the Warhol Foundation, as well as the Rafik Anadol immersive room that maybe some of you saw a couple years ago here at the Digital Art Fair. So my focus as a collector has always been to really think about some of the top-tier blue-chip art, both from the traditional world as well as from the new digital world. And I'm joined by incredible guests, Craig, Stefanie, and Gus, who I will ask to introduce themselves, and then we will have a very lively conversation, hopefully, about collecting in the Web3 space, the calm after the storm. So why don't we go down the row, and Craig, maybe you can introduce yourself.
Yeah, thank you, Jehan. I'm Craig Palmer. I'm the CEO of MakersPlace. I do want to echo a comment Jehan made at the keynote. I'm very impressed with this show. It's our first time here in Hong Kong, and I think the way in which this show is highlighting digital art and showing the creativity of digital art and the value of digital art and introducing it to one of the great art and cultural cities in the world, I think is fantastic. So I'm very happy to be here. Even though it's the first time here for MakersPlace, we are one of really the pioneers in the marketplace. We first launched our marketplace in 2018. We were the guys that you mentioned earlier that brought Beeple to Christie's and sold the iconic 5,000 days for $69 million. I agree with your comment that there's good and bad about that. But that was one of the things that helped jumpstart this marketplace. We are, a curated marketplace. You have to be kind of an approved artist or creator to offer works in our marketplace, and if you are, then you can launch works in our general marketplace. But we also have a very talented business development marketing team that teams up creatively with the top creators and artists and works to create, really plan to launch iconic offerings with marketing plans that include email, social, press. We'll do live activations, we do exhibits, et cetera. And so we really try to bring a high-end ethos to, and creativity to market and create success for the artists that we work with. At this show, actually, we're highlighting 3 amazing artists. One of them, David Ariev, is the featured immersive artist that's in the room next to us. If you haven't seen that room, please do. We also have a few other of his limited editions and open edition in the MakersPlace booth on the other side of the wall. We also have brought a very famous generative artist, Hideki Tsukamoto, that has created a very small, intimate collection of 8 pieces in his Immortal series that's in our booth. And then finally, we brought an artist that uses generative and AI methods, Brandon Dawes, who's highlighted around the corner in the data set area with other really well-known generative artists. And so we're super happy to be here, and thank you.
Great, thank you, Craig. Stefanie, please.
Hi, everyone. So my name is Stefanie de Regel. I'm the head of development for TAIEX. Very pleased to be here as well. It's our first year. We're very impressed. We met Jillian in Art Basel, Hong Kong, and we started talking and realized that this is absolutely a place that we have to be at. TAIEX is a digital platform. We're the art experience partner for Digital Art Fair Asia, and our artist for that is Kenetic, who's a very international French digital artist, but it's actually the first time he's bringing out NFTs. He's always been in the space creating big shows, gathering big communities for art and music events, and so now he's coming out with 3 unique editions that you can see at the booth. And we're also bringing Andrea Bonacciotto, Italian artist whose works have been sold at Christie's and Phillips, and a Chinese artist, Funaye. So TAIEX is more of a boutique platform, so we also have a curated approach. We actually have curators that bring on digital artists, curate separate shows. We do a lot of events. We're trying to build our own community. We have a collectors club. So really trying to bring the digital more in the physical, and we have a traditional art collectors that are our founders, closely associated also to the art newspaper as our media partner. and really trying to make people understand that digital art is a very important part of contemporary art and is not somewhere separate, living its own life. So also referring back to your keynotes on a lot of points of which I agreed. So thank you. I'll pass on the words to Gus.
Thank you, Stephanie. Gus.
Thank you. I'm Gus Lee, and I'm founder of Parameta. So what we actually do is we've been co-founding, supporting, and building a number of companies across the world that focus on code-based creations. So we don't just focus on code-based art, but code-based design as well. So that's something that we've been developing. What we've done in Hong Kong specifically, we're working with a audio brand that is based in Hong Kong and in the UK called KEF. We've come up with this kind of idea of creating these music galleries, which essentially, to Stephanie's point, a lot of these things is created digitally. The medium is digital, but you experience it physically. And we think that within this kind of intersection of these spaces, this hybrid space, is where a lot of the relevance comes from this. And so we've been working on that kind of thesis. We've been working, interestingly enough, David Ario is somebody that I've collected since 21. And what's happened in that room next door to us here, which you must all see, I think it's a natural extension of what is a digital medium that allows you to adapt and evolve. I think physical art doesn't not necessarily need to do that, but it certainly doesn't do that in the same way as what digital mediums are. We're working with a number of artists that are also shown out here. Some of those mentioned. One that hasn't been mentioned, a generative artist named Alida Sun. Amazing work. I think she's showing at Unit London's fair. That fantastic artist. She's actually a performance artist. And one thing that I also do is I sit on the committee board of West Kowloon here in Hong Kong. And I think one thing that blockchain and digital art allows us to do is unlock the less obvious art forms. Performance art, I think, is something that we will continue to see grow and flourish with blockchain technology. Marina Abramovic is someone who's just taken over South Bank Center, which is absolutely amazing. And she obviously predates a lot of the blockchain work. But what she did on the Tezos ecosystem was quite foundational. And aside from Alida, there's also, you guys should take note, is someone called, or a duo, Deja and Anya, Operator. They are, again, another set of performance artists, I think, who are doing really interesting things. And we're in the very lucky position of being able to support front, center, and back in many forms. And we believe that it's all to do with community. You can't create this just as a creator. You can't do this just as a curator. What needs to happen is actually inclusion of institutions and brands, which will bring relevance to a lot of this. And why I focus on code-based design is because it's not purely what you necessarily subjective aesthetics, but that has application as well beyond that.
Awesome, thank you. Well, that's a great segue into the conversation. I guess the first question comes with a preface, which is the state of the market right now, the NFT market is pretty bad. Every headline you look at, it's, you know, the market's going down, the volumes are going down, prices are going down. And so, you know, it doesn't inspire a lot of confidence for people that are kind of just looking at the market now, especially those who are coming in. And actually, I'd like to do just an audience poll. How many of you own an NFT? Okay, it's about half of you. Okay, great. Well, that's good. So we have to work on the other half. And there's a lot of NFTs you can collect here. So I guess, given that backdrop, and just obviously the overall market and the global markets, not just NFTs being where they are, what do you think is, you know, how should the collectors and how should people who are new to the market of NFTs and to collecting NFTs, how should they think about this moment? How should they be thinking about the opportunity? Should they be running away? Should they be waiting? Should they be kind of diving in because prices are low? How should a collector approach collecting today? And I'll start with Stefanie because she looks raring to go.
I think they should approach it with confidence because I think that, well, in general, the art market is always a bubble within a bubble within a bubble. There's always a lot of bubbles. But because it's been there for a lot of, like, a long time, it's more safe. Digital market just kind of like with the NFTs created a whole digital renaissance and the market went up. And I think that back then everyone was buying and there was a hype. And now with the crash, you would think that like maybe the advice would be like, don't touch NFTs, don't touch digital art. But actually it's the time now that we're creating a sustainable market, that all these, when the bubble had burst, like everyone left, and now are the real like place makers. Now are the real people that are here. And this is a time to open your collector's eye, look around and actually see what's left and who is building up, because that's a sustainable thing that we're going towards to. And so I think it's a very good time for collectors to step in. And for those that were already collecting, they have a more sober look on their collection. And yeah, it's an educational time for all of us. So it's now the time to join, the very best time.
I actually agree with that because I find that when I was trying to evangelize for a lot of NFTs back in, during that bull run, the NFT bull run, NFT summer, I found that most institutions and most, kind of traditional art curators did not want to talk to me. Not only because they just didn't understand it, but also I think they were really scared away by the prices and the hype. And I think this offers a really interesting opportunity. Craig, what do you think?
I think there's a lot of parallels to the current state of the digital art market and NFT market to the internet meltdown in 2001. If you look back, so many, really bullshit businesses got wiped out in the internet meltdown, and what was left were the best companies, actually, the ones that you recognize today. That, it was, all the social companies, Airbnb, Uber, et cetera. All these companies really grew on the ashes of the internet meltdown, and I think right now is the same parallel in the digital art space. The companies that are going to stay are the ones that have sustainable business models, that are in build mode and really like it. That's my company today as one, and I think the art that's being produced is being produced at a level that is sustainable. And will create value over time. And I agree with the comments on it being actually a great time to acquire art in this marketplace. And I think, on one hand, you could call it, a down market, but I actually think it's a real market now.
Got it. Gus?
Yeah, absolutely. And I mentioned earlier that I think we need to look at these things as an ecosystem. I think as builders in the space, I think you're no longer needing to adjust your pitch to make it something that is unbelievable and everything is up, right? As creators, you're now given the space and time to actually be developing your work. I think as collectors, it's not just about the unsustainable hype, but also I think during the collection I think is something is about participation, and I think we're now at an accessible level. I mean, you just look at what MakersPlace is doing outside there. You can mint a raffle there and have a possibility. So you own that NFT, and you have the possibility of getting a one of three, I think it's called. And ultimately, what that does is it's $100. You're not asking someone to put their life savings on something. And I think when you participate, you start to understand it, and you can choose to like it or not like it. And I think this is an important part. It's accessibility.
Awesome, thank you. What do you guys think about collecting NFTs in particular? Like, obviously, I think a lot of people here have collected some type of art previously. They've been looking at it. What if any, point or purpose or advantage, quote unquote, is there to collecting NFTs versus traditional art? Like, obviously, it's a different field. There's different artists to some degree. But when you think about building a collection, when you think about acquiring, why NFTs and why now?
I guess I'll go.
Go ahead.
I think the way I'd like to think about it is, if you draw the hands of the clock ahead, the whole term NFT and digital art is going to go away. What you see here is just art. In the same way that you have painting and sculpture and different styles of art, it's just art. And so but I also think what digital art brings to the table is a unique aspect of marrying still with movement, with audio, with immersive aspects in ways that you can't do in traditional art. So, but I think at the end of the day, you should approach it like you approach any art market. Do you love it? Are you invested in the creator? Do you want to have a relationship with that style of art or that creator itself? And lean into a market that is really fantastic in terms of what it brings to the table.
Gus?
I think we're also at a stage where, a lot of people that are going to be participating and creating art are actually born in a period where they're native to the internet. And I think that actually, for a lot of people that speak about traditional art, they're speaking from a position of much, further down the line in years. And sometimes we forget that perspective, that actually the people that are going to be enjoying this are actually digitally native. And to them, physical and digital is not necessarily a thing. And that I think this idea allows us to, but why NFT, right? And I think what we're really talking about is extending the rights, the property rights, from being a physical thing to being a digital thing as well. And that changes everything.
Well, I think that I understood the question in a bit of a different way, because
Please.
I wanted to state also like the difference between actually buying an NFT and buying digital art like it's been done for many years. Like galleries like Bitform have been selling digital art way before the digital renaissance. And I think that when we are talking to collectors that also are more in the traditional art world and you use the word NFT, there's a bit of a shiver. Like there's like, oof, NFT, because everyone's read the headlines. It keeps coming, like NFTs are down, but the PFPs are down, right? So there's so much need for education again. So I think that the benefit of having an NFT, if you are in Web3, you have a wallet, like of course it's the best way to purchase a digital asset. But if you just want to buy the art for the art, like you should leave people that space to buy it in the way that they want to buy it, like not push them in a way that they are not ready for. And that is in my opinion, a mistake that a lot of people make. It's like, buy NFTs, buy NFTs. No, buy the art. And let's discuss how you want to buy it. We have a Web 2-based solution, a Web 3-based solution. Talk to the collectors. Have that discussion.
I also think sometimes we talk about NFTs and digital art like it's over here and it's really separate from traditional and physical. Probably, a third of the artists we work with at MakersPlace now are marrying the two together. They're offering something that's digital and marrying it with a physical piece. And to help facilitate that, we actually created technology that helped on the physical side, because obviously if you buy something with crypto that's digital, we don't know who you are in many cases. But if you need to ship something to somebody that's physical, you need to collect some information. And so we've tried to create technology that can marry the digital and physical world in a way that we can offer combinations. And a lot of our artists are taking advantage of that. And so I think along with the maturing of this market, there's also really a blurring between digital and physical. Artists that maybe started doing digital are starting to create physical. We actually recently partnered to have a gallery in Carmel, California, where we curate the art in partnership with the gallery owner.
Yeah.
And it's a mix of digital and physical art, and a lot of our digital artists want to be in that gallery, actually, because they want to advance their career in interesting ways. So I think there's also this real blending of traditional and digital.
Yeah, I've been feeling that for a while, that the kind of boundary between digital and physical is just being eroded and everything's kind of merging together. I mean, obviously the Beeple work, Human One, is physical and digital, and there's so many works that are kind of encompass both. That said, given this kind of convergence of physical and digital medium, what does the collection of the future look like? What do you think are the important artists or the important movements, whether it's generative? And I would love to hear you guys talk about generative art, because I think generative art seems to be one of the mainstays of at least this wave of kind of digital art. What does, the seminal collection, the landmark collection of digital art 50 years from now, what is it that people should have been collecting today? Gus, I'll start with you.
Well, it's a big question, isn't it?
No pressure, no pressure.
So I'll answer it in the way that I've interpreted that question. So I think it's actually very interesting. We've talked about these artists that from the digital wanting to be in physical galleries, and we talked about physical artists who are using digital mediums. But I actually think what's really quite interesting is that different artists have taken different routes. There is no set way. You look at Rafiq's work, there's a lot of similarity in some of the work that's been presented here and his earlier works that were collected in the original digital art fair. But if you look at what he did in Salesforce, which was in 2014, the point is that there's many ways to interpret this, but the use of blockchain as a medium versus the use of blockchain as technology, right? And I think in this case, he has used that technology to grow a very powerful NFT fan base who have moved into art through that kind of movement. And then you look at somebody like Pinder van Armen, who is a generative artist, but he is a generative AI artist. And his work predates what we think of as generative AI, like chatbots and the like. And so what he did was he used GAN. And GAN was quite a way ahead of his time.
Can you say what that is?
So there are 4 types of generative AI. There's Vase, Flow, Diffusion, and GAN. So GAN is really the oldest one. Diffusion is basically the same technology that everybody uses for ChatGPT, for example. And so what Pinder van Armen did, essentially, he used GAN as a way of creating art, which is not unusual. But over time, what he's done is he's started to refine his code. So in his latest pieces, what he's tried to do is create it so that everything is on-chain. So you can imagine code it can be in complete tatters. It's like when you make a dish. Your kitchen could be a complete mess. No one can see it. So it's same with code. So he took it upon himself to turn that art into refining it to its nth degree so it can be made on-chain. So it's complete blockchain art. So I believe there's different ways to kind of approach this, and everyone has their own, I think, very powerful way of using this form of expression.
Amazing. Amazing. Stefanie?
For me, the collection of the future, like a big collection would be really the 50-50 approach, where a collector is no longer only a digital collector or physical collector, and he's really found that balance because he's accepted the world that he lives in, which is mainly digital. And in 50 years, I don't know, like, who knows? AR will
In 50 years, will we have physical art?
Yeah. Physical art is not going anywhere, that's for sure. There is something about the tangibility of physical art that we just have in our DNA, all of us. And even me, who was a digital art aficionado, I still love physical. It will never go away. And actually, our world will become more and more and more digital. So it will become more rare, physical art, and be appreciated in new ways because of that. But also, I have a foot in tech, which is AR, and I know what's happening in that space. And the glasses, everyone's talking, the glasses. But in 50 years, we won't have a phone anymore. We'll maybe have lenses already, I don't know. And everything will be AR-based. And I think a collector's house, the digital will actually be so easy to project, to see, to experience, because you won't need to put on a screen, or everything will be so much more eloquent and easy. So digital is gonna take a big rise. So that's how I see the future collector's house, with these innovative solutions, AR-based, and the physical, a bit of that. Like, it's just going to be a nice merging, and so it will have a prominent place.
Greg?
Yeah, I'll make a couple of comments. It's hard to predict who are the iconic artists 50 years from now in this space. But I think if you go look at like the LG magnet wall, you can envision the house of the future where you might have a whole wall that's just a screen that you could display different art all the time. I do agree with the comment that the ideal collection is going to be still a combination of both physical and digital art, but I think you're going to have houses that are tuned to be able to project digital art in really unique ways. I would like to make one other comment kind of in the whole area of AI and generative, because I think there has to be continued education for everybody about NFTs and digital art, but especially in generative and AI mechanisms. How do you teach people about how that art is created? I think you talked a lot about generative. in AI, sometimes there's a perception that you just push a button and get magic art out of the back end of it. We actually did an event at NFC Lisbon where we took 4 very well-known AI generative artists, put them in our booth, and they created art live on a common theme where everybody could watch their mechanisms, how they actually did it, what tools they used, how they created, how they put their own stamp on it in a unique way so it was authentic and aligned with their ethos, et cetera. And it was really well perceived because most people don't know, it's like a magic system. Most people don't know how this kind of art is created. So it was really fantastic to watch the people, watch the artists create art live in that way. And I think we as need to do more education of this sort so people can understand some of these fields better than they are today. And then therefore, they would be motivated to want to collect the art. And that will help define the iconic collections 50 years from now.
Yeah, that's super interesting. But that's actually a perfect kind of roll into the question that I have for Gus, which is really around creators and artists. Given the kind of tool set, the generative tool set, we had dinner with actually one of Joyce's friends yesterday, who is a singer, and we were talking about like the whole Drake Weekend song that was created completely generatively, so no participation from Drake in the Weekend, which was like a really good track. And what now is, in the age of generative AI, what is the artist's role? What is the artist's ability to kind of create when the tools themselves are so really kind of powerful? Because you're very deep into generative art, and obviously you're kind of a specialist in it. What do you see as the role of the artist when there are so many of these kind of tools which actually will create?
Yeah, thanks. I think this answer will be different in 10 years' time, first of all. So I think we're right at the beginning of all of this. And I think, aside from generative AI, there is algorithmic generative. So if you see the work by Dmitry Cherniak, you see the work by Tyler Hobbs, that's algorithmic. And so what that means is it's built completely with code. So it's only as, if you like, it's as a tool, you're still using mathematics. And using mathematics to create art has been done for a very, very long time. So I think in that sense, generative art is no different. And I think what we're seeing is the tools used to create art is one thing, what you create is another. And we always say, art is in the code. So when you talk about algorithmic generative art, you're talking about the art is in the code because the beauty can be found in that code, and how it expresses that code is interesting. So long-form generative art is essentially the same code with the same parameters, but iterated 1,000, 100, or how many times. And that means 1,000 people can participate and have a unique piece to themselves. And I think in that sense, you are actually having an even more special kind of connection with the creator of that. So you are essentially a patron, a co-creator, and therefore a participant on many levels in art. And that means you have access to art, you have access to technology. What that means is you have the basic access to culture. And I think that's the important thing.
Thank you.
Yeah, like anything, you can't fight the advance of technology. Technology will always advance. There will be new tools created, and the people who choose to embrace them and put their creative stamp on top of those tools will be the ones that succeed. And I think you're starting to see that, today with a lot of the people that are using generative or AI tools. And so I don't think, first of all, you're never going to replace real artistry or creativity in music or art by technology itself. I believe that will never happen. But the best artists, the ones that advance with the state of technology, will be the ones that learn how to harness it in a way that they can create their own unique identity and ethos and stamp on top of that technology and continue to show their unique creativity with it.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think it raises a lot of questions around the future relationship of the audience and the collector and the artist when the artist's hand becomes more removed from the actual product itself. And for me, maybe one thing I'm thinking about is how much more important it is for the collector or the audience to have a direct relationship with the artist, because what they're creating will increasingly be both scaled and also automated. But what remains, that physical, almost that kind of paraphysical relationship between you and me and the artist and the person is not automated, is not able to be automated. So that kind of leads us to maybe the last few questions. I guess individually, each of you are working on platforms, working with platforms, have created platforms that in many ways service collectors and service artists. As you're thinking about the next phase, coming out of this, inflection point, NFT winter, what do you think is important and what do you think will be advantageous both for your platform but also for the audience and the collectors in order to kind of bring back that vibe and bring back that type of engagement? What strategies would you be looking at? What things would you emphasize in order to make your platform successful and to continue growing the pie coming out of this?
Yeah, I think one of the beauties of digital art and NFTs is the fact that, artists and collectors can have a more direct relationship than typically exists in the physical art world, where you might have somebody buying your art somewhere, in a gallery, and you never actually meet them. You don't know who they are that has your art. And I think digital art has the ability to create a connection that can be really maintained and grown. And so one of the things that MakersPlace does a lot of is working with artists beyond just our platform capabilities to help them create that connection, whether it's we help them launch Discord communities, or we help them moderate communities and incent communities in unique ways. Exhibiting at shows like this creates connections between collectors and creators in unique ways. And so we try to find a way in which we can help artists that maybe don't know the best way to navigate this space, and help them establish those connections on a more direct basis between their collector base and what they're doing individually in a way that I think is really unique in this digital space versus kind of the traditional side of the equation.
I love that. I love the idea of trying to promote connection rather than distribution, or in addition to distribution. Stefanie, what do you think?
Well, TIEX is investing a lot into also the closer relationship to our collectors and the community, and also giving a lot of educational opportunities with our curators that are writing a lot of newsletters. We're doing a lot of events. We're doing, like tonight, we're doing the immersive dinner, where that's the beauty also of digital art, as you said, with the immersive room, is like you can place sculptures in the corner, but they won't interact in that way with the public as it is when you're in an immersive room sitting there with the art. And I think that's really a very strong point, which will indeed bring these audiences closer. So we're really focusing a lot on that, trying to do residencies also with new partners and expanding. And it's like you see that the collectors are happy if their work is featured maybe in a show, that they can actually see how it's shared with other people and inspired, instead of having that one painting, hanging it on your wall and looking at it yourself, and sometimes maybe lending it to some museum. Here it can be spread much more. So there's a connection between the collector, the future collectors, the audience in general, and of course the distributors, the platform. So I think it's a beautiful relationship that we're nourishing a lot.
Great. And Gus, please round us out.
So I think amongst the whole portfolio of projects we're working on, I think accessibility is a key word. I think I mentioned that a few times. And for example, for FX Hash, we've implemented what's called params. And params is very simple. It essentially means that you can implement anything from being just pressing a button through to actually putting in code to co-create with the original artist. So that allows a greater control and also access for collectors. But then also we also founded a not-for-profit called Creators First Foundation, and its purpose is very simple. It's to educate, incubate, and graduate. The idea is education is really important, not for the sake of education, but that code is something, and where, actually you asked the question earlier, what would we want? Do we actually want to bring back the hype that existed before? If you ask me, no. Because I think now people are more interested in understanding how to grow something, because it doesn't happen overnight. And I think on that basis, I think with what we try to do with the foundation essentially is educate on the purposes of being able to grow rigor within the space and not just try to flip something or create something very quickly. Thank you.
Awesome. All right. Well, I think we're running out of time, so maybe one last question, just a brief one, just a few kind of notes off the top of your head. What, if any, advice or thoughts or notes would you have for today and tomorrow's collectors? Craig, I'll start with you.
Just wander around, talk to people, ask questions, learn. You have an amazing opportunity with a beautiful exhibition with amazing artists. Just take advantage of it. I think you can learn a lot in a very short amount of time just by seeing what's here, asking questions, and interacting with the people that are here. That's my recommendation.
Great. Stephanie?
I think, wander around and look at, of course, it's on TVs, right? And our initial connection with TVs has been, the power of habit is very strong, right? So we're used to looking at it as something that's going to give us information, or a TV show or something like look at it as a digital canvas and try to extend beyond that and just absorb the art and think of how this artist with his digital brush has been working on it, living it, and talk to the people that are at the booth. Try to understand what it was about. Visit more art fairs. Try to also mix it also with the physical art fairs. Expand this world together because they're part of one another of the contemporary art world.
Gus?
I think mastery. If you're looking for something that you think is going to stand the test of time, there's literally only two things. One is mastery and one is innovation. And I think we've gone past the stage where things aren't necessarily innovative, but I think in terms of mastery, that's how you find art, right? We find a problem, we want to solve that problem. After we solve a problem, that's where the human expression comes into it, and that's where the art is found in a lot of these things. So, I'll end on that note.
Amazing. Well, I want to thank all of our panelists, Gus, Stephanie, Craig, for giving us their time and their insight and their sharing. And again, thank you to the Digital Art Fair, and thank you all for your attention. Hope you enjoyed the rest of the fair. Thanks.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.